Uh, Let me quick with this. I got a picture real quick, but basically, I remember. I'll be quick with this. I remember like back then, before like right at the end of the summer, before like about like fall, whatever. Before the when I before the withdrawal really started happening, crazy and stuff. I thought about Nicki Minaj. I was like, Jesus, man, like, cause it was crazy. I didn't realize it. At that time I wasn't even into Nicki Minaj. I wasn't even into her sexually. And I wasn't really remembering or like really understanding that. Hey, at one point when I was like 15, I would like started like around there. Like I would really That's when I would masturbate to Nicki Minaj really heavy, like really heavily. I would masturbate to this bitch because I was really like into her, fell in love with her type shit, spiritual shit. Made that deal with her in the spirit, married her in the spirit during that time. About 15 years old. It was just weird, crazy, but like I wasn't really realizing that. And then fast forward, I'm like, okay, like during that time, I'm not into Nicki Minaj, none of that. Don't even think she looked good. Think the bitch pretty much ugly as a bitch. And yeah, and that's what I'm like saying. Like I heard Jesus in my head talking about like, you know, or I was it's just in my head like thinking about okay, what if like just think about Nicki Minaj. Like it's crazy. I was like thinking about Nicki Minaj. Like I was outside by that one tree. I think it was a little sunny. I don't know. I don't remember. But like I was like, what the hell? But I'm like, yeah. I'm like during that time, I was thinking about Nicki Minaj, and when I was thinking about Nicki Minaj. It was like I said this story before, but to myself, but it's like I'm trying to think how to describe it. I was like, I didn't want to think of her. I didn't want to think of her. Not that I was mad at her, obviously, because I wasn't into her. I had no feelings to her anyway. It was just like I was just like, shit. Like, why am I being bothered by thinking about Nicki Minaj? I'm like, I was like, okay, Jesus, man. If she chosen, I was basically telling Jesus, if she chosen, I can't pray for her. You gonna have to do it, Jesus. 'Cause I don't know nothing about the Nicki Minaj stuff. I was like, obviously, in my mind, I was thinking, she's probably not chosen, but I wasn't concluding that. I wasn't concluding, oh, is she not chosen? Even if I was concluding it wasn't really like, oh, yeah, like, she not chosen. It was weird where my mind was at. It's so hard to describe where my mind was at. It was just like a blockage. That's what it felt like. Looking back at it, it's like, I don't know. It's like, obviously, it had to be God's divine timing, Jesus' divine timing for all that shit to represent Jesus, obviously. But it's like, I just didn't hear about it. I was like, man, if she can be saved from hell, I hope you pray for that, Jesus. I pray that you pray for her to be saved from hell. And that's literally the whole visual. Literally, that's literally what it's all about. That whole thing was about. Me just like I don't know why it's like because I was thinking about like oh like in my head it's like oh she meant to be with you Casey type stuff and I was like brushing it off. I was like what the hell? I don't want this shit in my head, but literally that was in my head and I didn't understand that. And then later on you know that's when all that whatever stuff happened, and it's crazy how like literally literally God had to wipe that shit out of like for some type of divine purpose. It's like I had to get that wiped out of me. The whole Nicki Minaj situation had to get wiped out of me. It's weird. It's weird. I can sit here and say it's the devil or witches, but in all actuality, it's actually God did that. It's actually God that did that, and it's sad. It's sad because you know, you know, looking back, I can't forget that like look like it's in the Bible Revelation. I read that, and even years ago I read that shit. Started the same thing. When I was 15 years old, I read Revelation, and it says something about go back to your first love, and I thought of that same stuff on Minaj, but I was like, it didn't really make as much sense. But I'm like, but then I remember reading that again. You know, was that when I was in that hospital one time? Yeah, I was like reading that, and I thought about the Nicki Minaj situation. Like, go back to your first love or I'm gonna remove your is it lampstand something whatever he said it about. But I'm like okay, obviously there's that Mariana situation which I really wasn't in love with Mariana, and it's what Jesus said about okay, actually it wasn't Mariana, it was actually Nicki Minaj the whole time, in your head type shit. It was weird. It's weird how all that weird stuff be, but like, I'm like, what's going on with this shit? So I think that's all I have to say about that shit, but pretty much, yeah, pretty deep stuff. Makes a lot of sense, the whole vision about, I told Dwayne this about Nicki Minaj being an angel, actual literal fucking angel getting kicked out of heaven and on some undercover shit like the fallen angels, like God had to pull Nicki Minaj to the side in heaven to be like, okay, your mission is to lead God's people to victory, and help Casey and etc. etc. And you're not gonna be actual fallen angel, but you're gonna fall with all the other fallen angels, and we're gonna have you, basically work for my kingdom by being undercover, like as a way to that's her purpose, so she basically and like I told Dwayne, I was like, man, she know about like even Jesus and God to myself before that too, but like I was like, I was like, basically it's like the whole thing about that was like, okay, yeah, like, okay, she an angel, kicked out of heaven, cool, cool. But like, it's like in Hollywood, it's kind of like even the representation of it's kind of cool because like I was basically saying like actually I was really just saying like I remember telling Dwayne I was like my principal Dwayne whatever in the car I was like okay about that vision and everything um and even having that vision like even when I was going through all that stupid shit from withdrawal and shit and even visualizing even after to and other stuff. But I'm like, why would I vision that? It's like, it's just, I told Dwayne it's a spiritual representation, like, of, like, basically, let's say this, because she know Hollywood, like, that's my purpose. I was basically saying my purpose probably is to be with her, and, like, obviously, I can't do it alone because she knows the wickedness. She knows the blood sacrifices, the rituals of Hollywood. She knows about all that satanic shit. She knows it because she's been in it as the angel. And her job is to lead God people to victory. Because she knows she was in it. She has a first her feet was in the fire. Both of her feet's been into the fire of all that shit in Hollywood. All that demonic shit. She knows what it is. She's been in all the industries basically in Hollywood. So she knows everything. She knows everything. So God using her would make sense. It would make sense to me. Like, especially with me and my music, me doing my music, me doing all that stuff. I can't do that alone because I don't know everything. I'm not protected. She can protect me because she knows about all that demonic shit that goes on in Hollywood. I've been in Hollywood too, obviously, we already know about that whole situation. But you know, yeah, it's deep. It's deep. Like the whole Metro train situation with G and what's his name, the white dude, white kid. That I was, talking to, hanging out with in L.A. A lot of crazy stuff that happened in L.A. A lot of witchcraft, a lot of magical stuff, mystical, whatever the fuck shit, whatever the fuck, it was crazy shit, whatever you would call it. But basically, like, yeah, crazy shit happened in L.A. But I would hang out with them a little bit, did whatever, smoke weed. I remember I smoked weed with them, and it was some weird. It was weird. It was weird how like, you know, whatever. But like, I don't know why I did that, but obviously God divined that to me. It's stupid smoke weed. We already know witches smoke weed, to gain some type of power with the devil, and they even do other drugs. But we already know that shit. But basically, yeah, I did that. But I remember on the metro train, I seen a disguise of Nicki Minaj. I was visualizing. Oh, they told me to go with her. I'm like, I don't know this bitch. Why would you tell me to go with her? But then I'm like, okay, she actually look like Nicki Minaj, like in a disguise. And instead of her actual tattoo on her arm, I don't know, I think it was the same arm. She had star tattoos. So she must have did something for the tattoo to like cover it up and then put the star one on it. It was like stars like the same one in the arm. Literally, and I didn't go with her. I didn't go with her because I visioned like maybe she's gonna kill me. I don't know what I visioned. But I could have died because if I would have went with her, it wasn't God divine time, and I would have died and went to hell. She probably would have killed me because she would have been like, "Oh yeah, yeah, this is not actual Casey then," because actual Casey in the prophetic books, like how she looked in the prophetic books in the vision, she knew prophecy. She knew prophecy was, you know, I can't be with Casey. I have to do this, but if he was to actually go with me, then it would go against the prophecy, and I would have to kill him, type stuff like that. So crazy stuff, but you know, that's just the truth behind the situation. So I think I'm gonna end this, So basically, in the Pink Friday 2 album cover is the Metro Train. So her on the Metro Train, and also looking some angelic stuff. So yeah, so yeah. Let me see. I think I'm gonna end this stuff. So yeah, this whole Nicki Minaj situation. So peace.